As we start 2014, the question I'm asked more often than I can believe is, are you pessimistic or optimistic about what's happening in the world? Clearly, I'm optimistic, and that's because of some of the big global micro trends, things that are happening. I look particularly at situations like the elimination of poverty. You have just unbelievable amounts of progress that have been made under the Millennium Goals. Now we're talking about how do we actually bring sustainability because of the threat of climate change and what it might do. And it's clear that there'll be really major progress in how the global community chooses to deal with not just continuing to fight against poverty around the world, but also looks at how you build sustainability into that process. What's made that process work until now has been very much not the governments have done everything, but that the private sector has stepped up big time. The private investors have stepped up, and that civil societies have really begun to play a critical role. All of those trends taken together give me great optimism that in one of the greatest things that the world faces, the fight on poverty, for example, that there's a lot that we can be saying that gives us the basis for being optimistic. But let me take a more specific example of where we hear a lot of negativity, for example, about the behavior of Russia, for example. We hear, Russia's doing this, Russia's doing that. We see all kinds of stuff in the media. It's very negative. We're told Russian-American relations are at the worst point they've been at in many years. And yet, if you look carefully at this, there's a lot of very positive things happening. One of the most advanced agreements between any two countries on cybersecurity were signed last year between Washington and Moscow. A big surprise. People wouldn't expect that. It's an agreement of cooperation on cybersecurity that goes far beyond the agreement that either country has with other nations. That is maybe scratching your head saying, how does something like that happen? But then how did the chemical weapons destruction in Syria take place? It was a bold leadership move by Russia, supported by Secretary Kerry and others, which then has now led to, as we talk, the weapons are being destroyed. They've been collected and are being collected from areas where there's conflict going on. The international community has risen up. Lots of nations are involved, and those weapons, which represent one of the largest arsenals of chemical weapons in the world, are being destroyed. A remarkable thing that 1 year ago or less, nobody would have believed had a chance. And again, that's part of that cooperation. Whether we talk about Iran, whether we talk about drugs in post-2014 Afghanistan, the East West Institute is doing some pioneering work with the top people in Russia and the United States about really re-examining the whole approach. Why have we failed with all the drugs from Afghanistan, which are having a devastating effect in so many parts of the world? There's a lot of new ideas, a lot of good thinking and policy ideas, which actually then both countries are now looking at seriously to move ahead. We have the Global Initiative to Combat Nuclear Terrorism, something which for a number of years the United States has worked carefully and co-leading, co-chairing with Russia. Now 86 countries have signed that convention. These are all steps that we don't read about in the paper, we don't hear about in the news, on television, but which are extremely important. And these are the kinds of things that give me hope that whether the issue is global poverty or the issue is Russia's behavior, that we really are in a situation where we have a good reason to be optimistic and to continue to work hard to make these things happen.